Hello, kids, everyone that's in. We are joined today by a friend of mine that I used to play football a lot with, Richard Stirrup, and he's now one of the first team analysts, football analysts at Sheffield Wednesday, and a lot of you know that that's my team. So there's no bantering on who I support and stuff, and everything's to remain professional and things during this interview. Right, thanks for your time, mate. First of all, just can you give us a little insight into what the role is that you do, and a bit about what you do day to day with regards to your job and how that links to the first team?
Yeah, that's no problem. So I'm first team analyst. So basically that means that I will be watching a lot of the opposition. I'll be watching a lot of us as a team in terms of what we will be, shape, formation, ideas from the manager. And then we'll look at the opposition, how they play, how they like to set up. Is there any sort of strengths of theirs? Is there any weaknesses? Is there any ways that we can possibly combat what they're trying to do? Just kind of communicate with the staff and the players to get the best out of them and show them video footage, whether that's on an individual side or a team side. It's just kind of all aspects of analysing the team and the opposition, really. But day to day, it's just a lot of watching football, whether it's us or the opposition, really.
Mm-hmm. I suppose, like, working in elite sport, then, was that something that you always wanted to do? Thinking about like your career path. So when you perhaps finished at school, I know that I think you were a scholar at Wednesday, and then what did you do after when you finished as a scholar at Wednesday, and how did your sort of career path go and lead to what you're doing now?
So I left school, and when I left school, that's when I actually got into Sheffield Wednesday, and I was a scholar there. I was there for 2-3 years, and unfortunately that never worked out. But obviously at that time, my idea was that I wanted to make it as a professional football player. And it kind of, when that doesn't happen, obviously that's it's not great news. But you've kind of got to pick yourself up and you've got to say what you're going to do now. So part of the scholar program, this goes for all scholars throughout the country, whether you're at Sheffield Wednesday or you're at Man United or wherever. They put you through. Not only will you obviously teaching you how to play football, but they put you through education side of it as well. So they do put you through a BTEC, a sports BTEC. So you've got some sort of qualifications when you come out of there. Not only that, when you're doing that, they give you some sort of MVQ, and also they put you through your coaching badges. So they put you through level 1 coaching your first year, and the second year they put you through level 2. So by the end of your scholar, because obviously at that time they don't know if you're going to become a professional footballer or not. So at that time, you're coming out of it, at least they've given you some sort of education side to move on, whether that's go into something else or you can move on and go into university. So when I finished my scholar, and obviously said they didn't want to continue my contract, I started to apply for universities. So I applied for it. The degree I had was a sport, health and disease degree at Leeds Metropolitan University. And that degree was something that I was interested in at the time, but at the time I never really thought that I wanted to go into elite sport. It was nothing on my radar in terms of coaching or doing this analysis or anything, physio or whatever. I just thought I was kind of just wanted to get away from football. So even though my degree was with sport, I didn't really think about going back into professional sport or football. So at that time, I completed my degree, and then I eventually, when I finished my university degree, I actually went and started to think about going into teaching. And then I did that for a couple of years, and eventually it was something I wasn't very much interested in. And then I started to think, what do I really, really want to do? And I still kept a lot of contacts at Sheffield Wednesday within the academy. And I rang him up and I said, can I come down and just kind of do some volunteering work and try and learn and do some sort of analysis? Because I knew that was similar to do coaching and everything, that sort of side. So I went down. I just shadowed some of the analysis team within the academy, and I was helping out. And then eventually, I just learned and kind of got into it that way. Just kind of got into within the Sheffield Wednesday Academy, and then eventually a job came up with the first team, and luckily enough, I took that. So it was just kind of, I didn't really know that I wanted to do that, but then after a while I knew I enjoyed football and I knew I enjoyed sport and obviously the contacts I had down there. I just went and volunteered for a lot of the time and went from there, really.
Yeah, so sometimes I think it's a bit like my career as well. You never really know what way it's going to go, and I think it's about keeping your opportunities open. But again, I think you touched on there about the importance of having contacts and building relationships with people along your way, no matter what you're doing. And you never know how or when them sort of contacts can come back and help you and support you. So it's not just what you have learned perhaps academically through your career and what you've learned, but again, it's what you contacts you've built up and how you sort of perhaps conduct yourself and what sort of impressions you've left. And obviously you left some positive impressions on staff at the football club from your time when you played there, with regards to perhaps your work ethic and things, and that's obviously stood you in good stead, I suppose, when coming to do the role that you find yourself doing now. Thinking a bit more specific about that role then, Rich, what do you find perhaps are the key skills that you need or you find yourself having to use or develop to be able to do this job?
Well, I think you kind of you touched on it there with the relationships and communication and everything. I think you bang on there in terms, especially in this sort of industry. It is a lot of not. Well, I wouldn't say it's who you know or anything like that. Obviously, you've got to kind of put yourself forward and you've got to be good at your job. But it's creating them relationships and being able to communicate with people effectively. Because you've got to know, especially with different. Because my short time I've been with Sheffield Wednesday, I've had 4 managers, and each manager works differently and has a different personality, and they bring in staff and they work, and they're different types of personality, and everyone works different. Not only that, it's a good experience for me, but it's I'd say key skills, especially this, is knowing how to speak to people, where the information that you've got it comes across in the right way, because some of the stuff that we might have access to, the information, it might be too heavy. A lot of data, a lot of numbers, and football players and management don't want to really know all of the stuff that you know. They want it condensed into the main points, and it's just being able to not kind of overload them with things that aren't really relevant, and you just communicating with them and being able to come across where it's not too heavy, but it's in a way where it's quite light-hearted, and being able to work with the players, because the players maybe need it on a little bit more of a simpler message. But yeah, the key skill for me would be probably communicating. Obviously, you need to understand the coaching side and tactical side and everything like that. But it's mainly the key skill, I think, communicating in the right way and getting the point across.
I think you touched on something that's quite important, that I think every student out there that's listening needs to understand and put themselves on that pedestal. Is you said that you went down and you volunteered at first, and I think that by doing that and giving yourself that opportunity to put yourself perhaps in the shop window as such and volunteer is something that's really important, not just perhaps in you succeeding in getting the role that you've got there, but any sort of form of career that someone wants to take, whether that's within the sporting industry or not. Volunteering and again, building them contacts and showing someone what you can do without any sort of financial recognition for it is really important and a way to step. And that's something that I'm sure I'd advocate, and I'm sure that that's something that you would in your role.
Massive. Yeah. Things like that. It's massive that you kind of put yourself there, and it shows that you're willing, and it shows that you go that extra mile just to kind of get your face like shown, and especially in this sort of industry where jobs aren't as common. you just kind of get to put yourself out there. But you're right, in any walk of and in any job, you need to show that you're willing and ready to push yourself and go there and go that extra mile, really.
Yeah, I think you probably realise from the amount of times I pester you for information on Wednesday and what's happening and stuff that should I not be a teacher, I think you've got my dream job as such. So I'm quite jealous in some ways of you in what you do. But that links me on to the last sort of question from me before I hand over to Rini or Ben Starkey, who's going to perhaps facilitate a few kids' questions. What is it that you, Rini? Can you mute whatever student that is, or can you mute them?
I think that's Cager.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Rich, yeah, I suppose, what is the most enjoyable part of your job? What do you enjoy the most about what you do?
Again, for me, I'm the same as you. It's obviously Sheffield Wednesday is my team as well. I grew up in Sheffield. Sheffield Wednesday was the team I support. So it's kind of working alongside the management and the players. Where obviously playing for them would be the next, obviously the ultimate, the next level, but it's not always going to work out like that. So working for them in this sort of side where you've got a kind of a hand in the way they're playing and the information that you know is kind of the best thing about it, really. But it's just the whole atmosphere, and I mean, I don't mind the travelling at the moment. Maybe that'll change when I get a family and everything. But like being around it all and seeing everything and going to the games, I do really enjoy what I do, and it's hard work. People maybe not think it is, but I do a lot of hours, and the pressures and the demands from the management and the chairman and everything. It can get quite pressured. Obviously, it's a results based industry, so. If it's not going well, it's bad, and when it's going really well, it's amazing. So there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows as well. So
I suppose last question from me, then I'm going to jump out. Obviously they're playing Bournemouth tonight at 7:00, and we played Preston the other day, so that's a quick turnaround. Do you find that for some games you can't do as much preparation as you would for others, or is it the same amount of detail and planning and preparation goes into sort of every single fixture?
So you've got to try and keep it consistent, not only obviously for the management, but the players as well. So you try and give the same sort of basic information each game. So like say, with the turnaround of games, especially in the Championship now, it's Saturday, Tuesday all the way through the season pretty much. So you might have 2 or 3 days to turn around. So you've kind of got to work in advance. So we'll be giving the opposition report on the team as they've finished the night they've finished playing Bournemouth. So we've got Millwall, so we'll be giving the opposition report this evening. Or some managers like to have it before so they can prepare the training for the next couple of days. Because obviously the training will be focused on combating that team. So there is a lot of pressure in terms of the work, but if you can add obviously more in, you'll do it. But with the time, especially when it's Saturday, Tuesday, you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 days. Sometimes with the players, they're going to have rest days, so you won't be able to work with them. So a lot of it's more looking at footage than actually training on the grass. Whereas in the Premier League, when they're playing Saturday to Saturday, they have a lot more time to actually work on the grass and do the coaching. Whereas might be a lot of video footage we'll be showing the players because they can't actually train because it's too heavy.
All right, cool. I don't know if you've got another 5 minutes, Stiz. I'm going to hand over to Ben Starkey now, or Rahine, and I don't know if they can facilitate a few questions that the kids might have put in the chat box. Mate, thank you very much. I'll catch up with you later on. Cheers, pal.
Yeah, no worries, no problem.
How you doing? Am I on? Rahine, can you spotlight me or something? I don't know how it works.
The kids can hear you.
All right, good. Kids, while you're listening in, could you just put into the chat box, please, any questions you might have, and then Miss Sony can ask them as she's monitoring the chat box. I guess I've got one question. Many of the students in the group probably haven't had to deal with rejection and setbacks in such a big way at the moment. And by listening in, it's probably something you've had to deal with along your travels. How is that something you dealt with, and how did you deal with it, and what can I take away from it?
I kind of dealt with it just in a way that you kind of. In my scholar team, there was a few that went on and tried to pursue a career in football, and that's absolutely fine. And and you can do that. And I suppose to some regards, I went to trials and everything like that and tried to pursue it that way. But at some point, you've kind of got to accept it and kind of just find that there's possibly something else that you could do in terms of that sort of level, or you can continue to kind of pursue it and keep going and trying to get to that sort of, well, I suppose, dream that you want to do, whatever it is, whether it's football or in any work, any job. But I suppose, yeah, just kind of just do as much as you can, and just if you feel that you've done as much as you can, that's all you can do, really. I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, just 100% all the time. A couple of questions here. I've got one from Nana. What's the next level up? Where do you go from here?
So for me personally, obviously I enjoy working with Sheffield Wednesday. I live locally to Sheffield. So with this job, there's few and far between in terms of analysis that are local if you didn't want to travel. Obviously, if you want to travel, you could go overseas, or the next level would possibly be trying to get your team to a promotion. So it would be to the Premier League. That'd probably be the ultimate. Other than that, would be trying to get into one of the big teams. You're looking sort of your Manchester Uniteds, your Chelseas, Man Cities, Liverpools. So that would probably be something where you're working with elite players on a Champions League basis. So that sort of thing would be the next level. Or the other side to it would be at a national level, England, Wales, Ireland, so these things. So kind of, yeah, there's another level. Obviously, the dream would be to take Sheffield Wednesday to that level and keep going, but maybe that's not always possible. Yeah.
Okay. Next question from Abby. I think you've touched on the most enjoyable. What's the least enjoyable, or rather than word least enjoyable, what's the most challenging aspects?
For me, the most challenging aspects is the defeats, because you get so invested into, because you put so much time and work and invest into that one game, and obviously what we do, there's an aspect that it matters. Ultimately, it's down to the players. You give them all that information, and whether they're on an off day or it's just not gone right or they got beaten by a better team, it's just when it comes to it and it's a defeat, and that's the hardest bit to deal with because you get so invested into it, invested into actually just that 90 minutes, and then but once that's gone, you're moving on to the next game and just thinking again. So it's the defeats. It's the hardest bit to deal with.
Defeat always is. No one likes losing.
No.
Tom says, is it necessary to be a professional footballer before doing your job? So I'm going to, again, roughly change that question slightly rather than is it necessary? But how did being a professional footballer and the role that you had in football help you with the understanding of the job?
So I'll answer the first bit. It's not necessary, no, because I'd say majority of the people I've worked with or do my job as well with other clubs, I don't think any of them have played. The guy I'm working with now, he didn't. He just kind of he went to university and did the similar sort of thing what I did in terms of volunteer and got into the club. So it's not necessary at all. But from probably my experience, the understanding would be that the environment, that obviously I was involved in that environment, so I kind of took to working with the first team environment maybe a bit easier than some of the other lads because I'd kind of already experienced that and understood how to communicate with the players on that level and communicate with the staff on that level as well. So I think that's what I found, what I took from it to kind of benefit me, really.
Yeah. I've got two questions, really. One is since you've been doing the job, what role has technology played and how has it changed and helped you in the last few years? Because I'm sure it evolves all the time.
Yeah, so it's technology in the sort of thing what I do is massive. I mean, I'd say probably 10, 15 years ago, my job may have not even existed. Just with the amount of money that's in football and the small margins, there's so much that goes into. I mean, there is at this level, at Championship level, but I imagine it's even higher when you go into like the big teams, massive teams. So I think that I think technology, the stuff that we use, obviously, it involves coding. You're filming. You're sort of like trying to get clips of everything. So when on a game day, we will live code, which basically means you film the game, but then you will code like say 10-second clips of each player and certain events, whether it's a goal or corner. So you can obviously get that data, and you can also get the video footage of that data. So when the manager at halftime says, for instance, show me that corner that it was on about, you've got it straight away on your laptop, and it's just a 10-second clip of that corner, and you can analyze it at halftime or in the game or whatever. So it's kind of, technology is massive with sort of the systems and the databases we use. The scouting tools, we've got things called Y Scout, which basically has information on every player that's in the world, and you can see video footage on them. It shows you tactics of the team. It shows you pretty much everything. So technology is a massive, massive thing. Like I say, probably 10, 15 years ago, my job would have just been starting. So yeah, it's kind of key, really. Not all managers are on board with it, but I think as time goes by, it'll get bigger and bigger, just because it's that many margins.
That's great. Got a few questions flooding in. I'm going to pick some of the better ones. What are you looking at specifically with attacking players when you analyse their play? I guess that's from an attacker.
Yeah. So probably looking at that, it's how they use their striker from an opposition point of view. So, for instance, is that one the attributes that striker brings to the team, whether he's someone that maybe runs in behind a little bit more than most, or someone that holds up play, links up play, and then just the sort of runs that he may make, whether it's in terms of off the ball movements. Does he run across the front post? Does he want to in the head? Does he want to shoot an aerial duel? Does he win the duels more? Is he successful in that sort of side? So you're trying to match up the footage to the data. So you look at the numbers, and then you'll match it up to the footage really. But yeah, and then you'll use that information. You'll show the manager. You show individuals. So you may show our central defenders to show like, this is how he may play. This is how we think he may play. Expect this, just to give them an idea of kind of what to expect when he's coming across. So he's prepared. Like I say, it's small margin. He wants to be prepared. He wants to know what foot he is. All these little things, and wants to know his height. So it's kind of, you're looking at them as an individual and what style or what type of forward that he will be.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, I had Robbie Keane on it, and I think it was Jimmy Bullard interviewing Robbie Keane on one of the podcasts. And Robbie Keane just spoke a lot about how he walks into a room and analyses everything. He wants to know where everything is, what it is, because then it becomes natural on the football pitch to be able to look around you, know what's around you, know where everyone is, and it's instinct. So that was something that's really stood out to me, and that was he was asked about the one bit of advice he would give younger players, and that would be it, just to make sure that becomes embedded in your everyday life. That was interesting to hear.
I think it's becoming a lot more. Like I said, some players are really interested in that sort of thing, and some players don't. So it's very individualised. You're finding now a lot more of the younger players that are coming through the academy, because they've grown up with this analysis, they're a bit more wanting that information more. So yeah, you're right in terms of like, how does it improve you as a player? Some may believe it does, some may believe it doesn't. So it's very unique to how you play a game. But yeah, I think, again, this is another thing about the information, how you communicate with players. Just, you don't want to overload them with too much, because then it may not be beneficial for him. So again,
yeah, definitely. All right, last couple of questions. How, obviously, you mentioned it with the scholarship at Wednesday, that's how you kind of ended up into it. What would your advice be to get involved in a similar job in all sports without having the route that you took?
It's going back to that volunteering. Just put yourself out there and volunteer, because it's difficult to try and get these paid roles because there's not as many about. But if you're willing to volunteer, it's very, very, very unlikely that someone will say no, they don't want you for free work. So we get lots and lots of people coming in, whether at university or whatever, and just applying, and obviously that's the route they want to go down. So they're wanting that experience, and especially in football, there's a lot of internships going around, and so apply for as many like internships and just volunteer your time and go in and gain experience. Because I'm a big believer that you can have a lot of the qualifications and it's great, but at the end of the day, the experience is key.
Yeah, that's great. All right, there's one more question from a student which I want to ask. Similar to the attacking one, this is now about defensively, specifically fullbacks. What do you look at specifically with a fullback's play when you're analysing their play?
For a fullback, we'd be looking at, again, just in terms of their position that they pick up balls. You'll see that fullbacks are are big now, especially in the game. They're quite key players in terms of bringing the width. You'll find that a lot of teams now, the width will come from the fullbacks. The wingers a lot of time play inside, so to overload the middle areas. But the fullbacks will look, where do they pick up the ball? Do they pick it up deep? Do they pick it up higher? What is their call it transition? So basically, how quickly they transition forward to join the attack, and how quickly they transition back into their defensive shape. So we'll look at if there's most of the time the spaces are down the sides of the central defenders, so that's usually where the fullback will be. But because there are a lot of the time now fullbacks are attacking, so the space is usually behind them. But if they're quite good at transitioning back in, it may not. So we'll be looking at how they're off the ball, but really, yeah, it's just kind of where they're picking up the ball in terms of individual skill. It's, are they more of a defensive fullback, or are they more offensive fullback? But you can go into so much detail, even like, are they good at aerial duels? Because you might want to put the ball there if you're playing long ball, but yeah, it's heavily detailed in that sort of, with every player. But yeah,
what would obviously no one wants to grow up and be a Gary Neville, as they say, but what would you say if you're analysing Trent, someone like Trent, which probably a lot of players want to emulate these days?
Yes, someone like Trent, obviously, and the way Liverpool play suits them. How they play is very, very attacking, both sides, and puts in a good ball, that sort of thing. He's looking for deliveries. He's trying to stop them crosses if he can. But yeah, again, it's not just how the fullback will play, but it's how they defend while both their fullbacks are high. So you're kind of looking at where the positions of the other players are as well around Trent. But yeah, really, it's just it's so much detail you could go into. It's incredible. It's mad. Yeah.
Okay, just to wrap up then, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
So my highlight would be, at the moment, we've not had any promotions or anything. So it's really just getting the job and just enjoying the job. I love what I do. I like coming to work. So yeah, it's just kind of, the highlight would be just working for a team that's supported and understanding the inside of it, really, and just kind of coming to work and working with a group of players that are trying to get to that next level.
Yeah, definitely. And then finally, the one piece.
Starks, you might have to lift up your phone. I think you're blocking the speaker.
Oh, am I? What's the one piece of advice you would give our youngsters who are on the call today?
Probably, again, just volunteer.
Volunteer, yeah.
Just get, if it's in this sort of line of work, but it's just get yourself about and get as much experience as you possibly can. I get emails and letters asking for like volunteers to come in, and obviously it's more difficult now because of the times and everything. But no one's really going to turn down free works and come in, do stuff, get on the laptop producing presentations, get you doing in-depth sort of like individual analysis, and you kind of working in that environment. Then you're getting experience. It goes on your CV, and you're getting to meet people. Like I said, the sort of people you meet and your communication you can have, and whether it's at that club or whether it's somewhere else, they may know someone that can help you out. If you've left a good impression on them, you kind of getting around. Someone putting in a good word for you.
Yeah, no, we made a vodcast yesterday actually with one of the drama teachers, and one of the questions was, what advice would I give? And it was to take those opportunities that are put in front of you every day. And I don't think the youngsters on the call, grasp enough opportunities, especially where we live in London. There are so many opportunities out there in the Olympic Park. And so for those of you listening, you've heard it from me, but especially from Richard, take the opportunities that are out there and use them to your advantage going forward, for sure. All right, thank you so much. It's much appreciated. It's been excellent, and I'm sure the guys.
Sorry, just before Mr. Starkey does cut it off, we had one final question that was asked them quite a few times. For a performance analysis, generally, like at the, whether they're at the bottom or at the top, do you know what the pay range can be, depending on where?
Again, I wouldn't say I'm too clear on it. Like, no, up to date on this, but I think in terms of football, it's so varied because obviously, I mean, at the top of the Premier League, there's so much money that's there that, I mean, I wouldn't know, but obviously the money that the players get is a lot, extremely a lot. Again, it's the coaching staff will get a lot. Yeah, it's varied. You may be. I mean, you may be looking between maybe anywhere from 20,000 all the way up to maybe 150,000. It's that wide range, so it's a massive range in terms of, like, if you're a League Two, or if you're at Tottenham. So it's a massive range. It's what they ever choose to say here, really.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You've done an amazing job at, talking about being a performance analyst, a sports analyst, and I'm pretty sure that all our students really appreciate everything that you've said today. So thank you for taking the time, and obviously good luck with tonight's game. Hope is favoured in your way.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Richard. Cheers.
Take
Thank
care.
you.